how to correctly fire your 12-pound Napoleon right now on Pirate Firearms and Reloading. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to cover something completely different. I have obviously done a previous video on Canon primers. If you're interested, I'm going to do another one on like slow match and the linstock and things like that. But today I have in front of me my quarter scale 12-pound Napoleon. So despite the name, these were used through the Revolution, through the Civil War, things like that. So that gives you a time period idea. Obviously, is the quarter scale version. I can't put a whole 12-pound cannon on my workbench. Well, I could, but my workbench will not thank me for it. So I got the little guy out because it'll be a whole lot easier to explain. Now, something to note that these were pulled by horse and cart. Now, the cart was also the ammo cart. So the tow eye here would be used to attach to the cart. The cart would have all the powder and all the projectiles, the cannonballs, the grape shot, things like that all on board. And then the horse would tow the lot. So you had a complete artillery unit towed by one set of horses, by one set of cart, and the men to obviously operate it. I'm going to go through how these would have traditionally been fired. So I'm going to try and give you a top-down view as much as possible because it might be a little bit easier to explain. And I'm going to use bottle caps with a number in them because each person was referred to basically by a number. So the number 1 man would be on the front left of the cannon. The number 2 man would stand on the front right. Now they are going to stand almost in front of the wheel. I'm putting the caps a little bit further inward to allow hopefully you to see them via the camera. Then at the rear of the cannon, you would have the number 3 man, have the number 4 man, who would usually be the person in charge, whether that's an NCO, an officer, etc. I can imagine in the heat of the battle, if you didn't have too many NCOs lying around, you may not even end up with the NCO on a particular piece. They might be moving between multiple. And number 5 will be way back in the rear somewhere, and that's your powder man and your ammo man. So his job is to design the powder charges. He's probably I wouldn't say the most qualified man, but probably the smartest man in the 5-man team because he has to adjust powder charges on the fly to help with ballistics and actually hitting what they're shooting at. So, what would happen in a firing sequence? The number 1 man is responsible for a couple of things. He would be responsible for clearing the barrel after it had been fired. And he would do this by taking a rod with a worm on it, which is like a picture of wine bottle corkscrew. I have a fouling scraper for today. And he would feed that down the barrel. He would be told to search the piece. This is an artillery piece, of course, hence the term piece. And he would put it in there, he'd twist the worm around and pull it back out. And that would remove any leftovers from the powder charge previous, so they would be in a powder bag. Today we use tinfoil for safety reasons and cleanliness. They potentially would have used like a cotton or a canvas like bag or pouch in order to load the powder into the piece. So he would be responsible for that. He would do that essentially first. Now the number 3 man, I know we're out of order, is going to come in, and he is responsible for the vent, or the touch hole, maybe you want to call it. It's called a vent in artillery anyway. And he would place a spike, or a vent pick, as it's technically called, into the vent and make sure there's nothing obstructing the vent. He would be told to search the vent by number 4 man, the NCO or the officer. So search the vent, he would announce that the vent is clear. At this point, he would have almost like a leather thimble or something leather around his hand or over his hand, and he will be placing his thumb over the vent hole with that piece of leather. This is to ensure no air enters this side of the barrel, so when a new powder charge is placed in, it does not cause any problems. This also comes in handy when the number 2 man starts to do his job. So he would now swab the piece, and you have here on the end of his particular ramrod felt or wool or something like that that would be dipped in the bucket here on the front, and it would be put down the barrel. This not only serves the purpose of cleaning the barrel and cleaning residual powder out of the barrel, residual fouling I should say, that also ensures that any burning embers left inside the piece are extinguished. So now you've proved that this barrel is clear and safe. At this point, number 5, the powder man, has been working away in the background while the rest of the team are preparing the piece. He would then come forward to the number 1 man. He would have this powder charge in a leather pouch, which is all closed up to ensure no embers hit him, or that powder charge. That would not end very well. And he will bring it forward and hand it to the number 1 man. On command, the number 1 man will insert it in the end of the piece, and then the number 2 man will take the other end of his particular tool, the ramrod end, and he would push the powder to the end of the barrel and pack it. At this point, then the projectile would be loaded, or the canister of grape shot, so on and so forth, and repeat action would happen. It would be forced down the barrel and forced home right up against the breech face or the rear of the cannon. At this point, now bear in mind these are only storage positions, the number 1 and number 2 man would be holding these at all times. Now the number 3 man will be instructed to pick the vent. So he'll take his vent pick and he will pierce the powder charge. At which point, depending on the period and the doctrine of the particular team firing this, they will either insert a cannon primer, originally made from pewter, tin, etc., or a lot of the time powder was just poured in there. Sometimes they put wax tops if they were going to sit in the rain or something like that, but some form of priming would be inserted into the vent. At which point now you must aim the piece. That would be the responsibility of the number 3 man to stand clear at this point. Now, the number 4 man here will be in charge of aiming. Like I said, he's the man in charge. He will simply place 2 thumbs either side of the casque ball on the back of the piece. He'll place his thumbs up, align that with the top center there, and roughly aim the cannon in direction. It would be the responsibility of the number 5 man, the powder man, to have this aiming lever obviously in the rearward. I can't because of my set here, and he would use that as leverage to rotate the piece just a little bit left, little bit right in order to do so. Generally speaking, the elevation was controlled by the powder man adjusting his powder charge rather than the adjustment back here. Obviously they'd get it in a general position, and then the powder man would do the rest of the work based on the type of projectile being used. At this point we have a loaded and aimed cannon, and it is now time to fire the cannon. Now this will also depend on the doctrine. Generally speaking, the number 4 man is in charge of the gun. He will be the man holding the linstock, at which point he will advise them to stand clear or just not be in front of the muzzle, and he will touch the linstock on the top of the vent, whether that's primed or powdered, and fire the cannon, at which point the whole process is repeated over again. Depending on which side you were fighting for, whose army, and the time period, this doctrine would change in minute details, but the general understanding is it took 5 men to run an artillery piece like this. And that is essentially how a cannon is fired. Important note about our 1 man and our 2 man, they will never ever stand in front of the muzzle of the cannon. That's just common sense at this point in time. Now, surprisingly enough, the 1 man and the 2 man will remain standing just in front of the wheel off to the side during the firing process. Remembering that the cannon will recoil backwards, in theory, they're going to be perfectly fine. The linstock will keep the number 4 man, the man in charge, far enough away from the cannon for firing as well. Obviously the powder man is way back at this point, and the number 3 man will have stepped off at this point in time. So how do we fire it in the modern world? Well, if you're doing a proper recreation, some way very, very similar to what I've just described. A lot of the times you won't have enough people, you're not doing a full reenactment, you're just doing it itself. Really, you're going to need 2 to 3 people to do this safe. The way that I like to do it is you have somebody at all times blocking this vent. That is one of the most critical jobs. That also comes in handy when you're cleaning, because if when that cleaning swab goes down the barrel, you will potentially shoot black, nasty, dirty water out the vent hole, and anybody standing around will get drowned. And also for cleanliness and cleaning the thing up when you're done, you don't want that nasty, residual powder water just going all over the place. So somebody managing the vent at all times, I believe, is a critical position. Somebody in charge of loading, swabbing, searching the piece, etc., and then somebody to bring the powder charge up when ready. You don't want to have the powder charge sitting anywhere near the piece until you are ready to load and fire it. That's just like your standard firearm. Only load when you're ready. At the end of the day, it's still a firearm. If you're interested in this piece here, I have seen a few manufacturers put them together. The only one I believe is currently producing these is Dixie Gunwork, and they have basically this exact same setup. Now, when I bought this one, it was in terrible condition, and I put a fair few hours in tidying it all up. The barrel was still raw steel, so on and so forth. So I've spent a bit of time tidying this up and getting this back into a really good looking cannon. I have added clips here on the wheels because when I do transport it, I do take the wheels off it for convenience. It tends to want to roll around the place for some reason. Beyond that, that's a general understanding of how things would have gone in an artillery team like this. Treat it like a firearm, treat it with respect. It does have the power to do you some serious harm and anybody else around you. So that's all for now, folks. If you have any questions about firing cannons, regardless of the size, please hit me up in the comments down below. If you liked this video, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And until next time, happy shooting.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And if you found this video helpful, please share it with your friends. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Catch you next time.